Hello and welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia. I'm your host, Jacob Rush, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Black, and we're back and we're playing with Power. Hello, folks. We have been gone for about a month. We don't really apologize. I mean, we missed you, but, you know, life happens, and Ryan's had his hips fixed. He's had surgery. He's been out of commission for about a week or two now. I started back at work for the first time in about 5.5 months, and the kids are in school, they're playing extra sports, so life has, to be fair, has just been so crazy for us. But it's September, so we set a goal to let's get back to it in September, and it's definitely in October, which is our anniversary birthday month as a show. So we're back, and we hope to be bringing you some good regular content, at least from now on through hopefully the end of the year. You know, I know holiday seasons are kind of they can be up in the air at times, but overall we are going to try to crank one out here for you every week if we can. But Ryan, how you doing, man? How are you feeling? Are you recovering? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? And can you tell a massive difference from where you were before you had this hip surgery?
So this is hip number 1 that's done. I have another one happening at the end of this month. So, but I do notice a difference, especially now that I'm putting a lot more strain on my left hip. Walking on crutches, I'm feeling a lot of pain, on my left hip. It hasn't been repaired yet, versus my right hip, which isn't feeling that pain. So that's pretty good. So far, so good. I won't be able to start basically walking and putting my full weight on my leg until basically like a few days before I go into my next surgery. So it's going to be a quick turnaround. And I did some testing, and I was able to do some weight bearing, no pain or anything like that. So it's just a matter of strength building at that point. So yeah, that's it's all going well. So I'm looking forward to getting up to speed, getting off crutches, because those things hurt.
Mm-hmm. At least you're still able to work, from home, which is great. It's helpful that you have a job that allows you to do that, and a lot of people don't have that luxury. Sometimes people have to have surgery, and they're just out, and they're struggling. So I'm glad that you're at a place in life where you can do that, and that's really good. Besides that, man, I think we should tell the folks what we have been radical rexing about. Well, I can start. I'm excited. We haven't Radical Rex in quite a while. It's always fun. You got things building up that it's more fun over the days. So while we were kind of on break, there were 2 Nintendo Directs, an indie backed up to a third-party Direct. I'll be honest, those are my least favorite. I don't really get hyped for those. It's always the Nintendo gems that are coming out of the big Directs that excite me, and I just kind of skimmed through it after they played, and to my dismay, or not to my dismay, I mean, honestly, it was what I thought. Nothing really magical happened. It was just these games are coming, and they're not. It's nothing groundbreaking or shocking. So, I mean, it's whatever. I'm so busy with life. I have to admit, it's nice to be busy with multiple things, so then I'm not twiddling my thumbs. When's the next Direct? Watching episode podcasts of shows on YouTube that are talking about Nintendo rumors of a new Direct. It's funny because it's just like, there was a time in my life when I worked at that chiropractic job. Honestly, like, life was pretty cush, and I could go to work, and it wasn't it wasn't a stressful job at all. And I'd go home, and my life was just obsessed and surrounded by gaming news and updates. And I used to have a time period, like right now, I would be like, it's September. Are we getting a real Direct? When's that Switch 2 rumor music coming out? Or rumor, where's that going? And it's just like, I ain't got time for all that. When the announcements come, they're a delicate surprise, Occasionally I'll check in, like, where's this going? But overall, like, I'm not, like, sitting twiddling my thumbs. As a matter of fact, I haven't touched my Switch in a couple months now. It's just all been Final Fantasy VII Rebirth when I have time to game, and even then, I maybe it's my next thing. So I've been watching Gundam, and the prequel, like it's called Gundam Origins, is like it's a build up to the original anime run of the 1979 series, and I didn't know where to start. You know, there's so many things, Gundam, so many side things, and some of them are like different universes. And I wanted the main meat and potatoes, like what's happening in the main universe of Gundam. The rest of the stories are built around for the most part. And doing some online YouTube research and talking to Traven, this seemed the right route to go. However, when I watched the Origins, I didn't have to. I think because it was originally made where they had the original run, and then decades later, the Origins comes out. I'm so glad that I watched Origins first, because there's story beats and there's characters that come and go. Like, I'm not used to when you watch a cartoon, an anime of anything, and it's got heroes and whatnot. Most of the time, it's like no one ever dies, right? Villains. Well, I'll be back next time, or you defeat them and then they come back, 12 episodes later to do something else, like Spider-Man, X-Men, whatever. This show kills people off left and right. I mean, there's characters that are main characters for like 10, 12, 13 episodes, and then they die. And then 4 episodes later, another main character dies that are good guys. It's not just bad guys. They're good guys and bad guys. And there are villains that are not necessarily. The origin shows you that they're not everyone. Everyone doesn't just have pure motives of evil. Like it really, Traven said it best. It defines like the tragedies of war all around. Like it shows you both sides of war. It shows you, like for example, and look at history in America, and let's talk about Nazi Germany, World War II. It would show you the sides and stories of people from Nazi Germany and sides and story of U.S. armies and their allies, and it humanizes the people, and it makes you feel for the characters, both sides, and that like not the Federation's the good guys essentially, and the Xeon soldiers, they're like the rebellious ones who are trying to basically conquer everything, and because they've been separate from Earth, and they are. It's just it's so complicated and mixed, tangled, but it's so interesting and fascinating, and it makes you feel for those characters who are on the bad team essentially, because that like the reason they're even there is not simply because they're like, oh, we are against the Federation and we hate them and what they're doing. Like, they're there because they got put there for circumstances that happened in their own lives, not necessarily because they chose to go there. So it's just really interesting, and it's emotional, and you see things. I recommend watching the Origins because, like, if I didn't watch Origins, characters would have died, and I would have been like, why is this so significant? Like, they make it a big deal, but they don't really go into the details about it. And that Origins that came out, decades later, really gets character and adds plot and story to those characters individually. And I mean, I've maybe teared up, cried 2 or 3 times watching this show because it is emotional and it's moving, and it's just some stuff is just unbelievable. And it inspired me to really start pushing and advocating for the Star Fox franchise to come back. And I think I know the direction it needs to go. It needs to go into a Gundam direction. And there might be a lot of people who hate that idea, but I think I would not be surprised if Miyamoto was inspired by Gundam when he made it, because there's so many starships in it, and then the robot element. I mean, in Star Fox, we fight robots. They're giant mechs, and you take them down. But what I think they need to do with Star Fox is they need to make their own mechs. Make the Star Gundam version, and because it's such a cool character. It's a machine. It's like Optimus Prime entering the arena. It's what it feels like, but it's controlled by somebody. And they show people talking through their cockpits and like, what have you done? And blows up. It's just so Star Foxy. I think it would really add a good element to it, and then bring it down to Earth, like too, because most of the series is. I was surprised at how much of it was. It's like on Earth. The first 2 seasons of that show are probably on Earth, and then fighting, and then they just went back into space where I'm at. But, it's just really cool, and I think it would be cool if Star Fox adopted that and like make them. It just makes it more different and unique, And I think maybe that could be the spin it needs, and add to the gameplay and the story, and then have your Earth elements. Like, I'm a big advocate for Dinosaur Planet. I think it could be done a little bit better, and Star Fox should certainly run a lot faster than he did in Dinosaur Planet. That is, out of everything, besides Tricky being annoying, probably the most annoying partner you've ever had in a game, even more than Navi. I hated how slow Star Fox ran in that game. He is like always doing like a brisk jog, but yet when I play him in Melee on the same system, he's like lightning fast. So I'm like, bro, that needs to be fixed. But I would love, like, get out of the cockpit, you run around, you explore, have Zelda parts of the game, but then like you get back to your ship and then you transform into the Gundam mode, and you have to be some characters, and maybe the Gundam, maybe everybody, if they're together, they can fuse together and create like a giant Power Ranger Gundam. I don't know. I'm just getting wild here, and I think it would be fascinating and fun. So, that's kind of what I've been Radical Rexing about over the past month. That's what's been entertaining me while I've been back into school. And a new Blink-182 deluxe album dropped, so I've actually been pretty obsessed with listening to that nonstop. They dropped like 8 new tracks, and truly they're amazing. I mean, it's like, wow, Blink is definitely, they're still back, and they've been back, and they just keep continuing to be great. So I know that was a lot. That was a month's worth of things, and I'm sure I'll have more to Radical Rex about after this month. And my daughter's birthday's this weekend, and technically on Tuesday, so we're having a birthday party for her as well. So I'm excited about that. But in general, there's a quick update on my life over the month of August. Well, how about you?
I got through surgery okay. I didn't have much pain afterwards. Just have to be careful on using it because I need to have it, recovered enough so that I can have my other hip done. So I'm Radical Rexing. Things are going well with that. I don't know. I've just been, playing some games here and there, and I actually got sucked into Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile game, of late, and so I've been playing that, and it's kind of a problem, just as much as I want to get involved with it. So I'm trying to start to wean off of it a bit because I'm like super into it, but I have games to play, RPGs and stuff. So, but I've been enjoying that quite a bit, and I've been trying to just recover. I've been looking at a bunch of different projects and stuff. I don't usually get to like sit down, and I'm not able to do a lot of the caretaking stuff that I usually do to help with Draco's medications and everything. So I've had a lot more free time to just like look into things that I hadn't looked into before. Like I did some studying up on some things that I needed to do work-wise that it was just kind of like beyond my normal day-to-day stuff that I needed to do. I was able to just take some extra time to look into that stuff for just greater understanding of my job, but also just for like, bettering my ability to write scripts and queries and things. So that was kind of fun to be able to take that time out. And I'm happy I'm able to drive now, though I don't like to go out for a long period just because the crutches are wearing me out quite a bit. But going to physical therapy is going good. I think else than that, the biggest thing is next week I'm buying a vehicle. So we finally found an accessible van that has a electric power ramp. And basically, it's a combination of like my blue van and my mom's red van. It's like in between.
What year is it?
Good question. I think it's 2010, I want to say. So, but it had been sitting in a garage, and it only had like 80,000 miles on it or something like that. And it had all the parts and everything like built into it. So it's a really cool used car to find, And so we're going to be picking that one up. And that's pretty going to be really great, especially for my back. I've been lifting the wheelchair in and out of a vehicle that doesn't really fit it very well. So, it's going to be great for just mobility and to go places a lot more. I'm really looking forward to that. So just ready to get recovered, and I've got lots of games on my backlog I've got to catch up on, and lots of material to Radical Rex about. But that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Cool, man. Very cool. Well, folks, we've talked a lot, and today's conversation is really just more of a discussion as our main topic. Ryan, would you like to introduce what our topic is all about today? As you
sure thing, man.
Some goo in your mouth.
So I was thinking, I was realizing Jacob and I are on these journeys of discovering things that we thought we didn't like in the past. And experiencing things now that we're at a new point in life where we can appreciate things, and be like, oh, that's dumb, or I don't have the attention span for that, or oh, I don't like that style or that type. And so Jacob and I have found a common interest, though completely separately from each other, of playing older RPGs that we've never played before. And this sparked with playing newer RPGs and things that came out, and then wanting to go back and review the history and experience where the roots came from and everything. So that's kind of where we're kind of going to be talking about today. It's just the journey that we've been on this past year, playing new experiences related to JRPGs, whether they're turn-based or they are action RPGs. Just running the whole thing and having our experiences as we're branching out and doing those things that we said that we weren't really fans of or wasn't something that we were really interested in, and how much we're loving it now as we're actually giving it a chance. So,
all right, let's dive in. Well, so why don't you go ahead and start? What's something that I guess you are really you're getting into, but for some reason in the past it held you back, and how did you get to that point, Ryan, of playing the series that you're going to talk about?
I've always been interested in playing Chrono Trigger, but as many of you know, I'm not a 2D RPG fan whatsoever. I think the only 2D RPG that I play is Pokemon, which is a very different thing. I mean, yes, it's I don't know. You're not playing Pokemon to get into the super emotional story, at least not in the original. It was building up your team and feeling really proud that you trained, your team, and you feel like you're part of something bigger, And it's not necessarily a huge story-driven type game. And I always found that I gravitated towards 3D RPGs, turn-based RPGs. Final Fantasy VIII was kind of my intro to that, and Tales of Symphonia, and I have lots of different which is more of an action RPG style, but still I always tend to go towards the 3D RPGs because I just connected with them on an emotional level, and I never really clicked with SNES graphics and the 2D pixelated RPGs of yesteryear. And I just didn't understand how people could emotionally connect with that when I just tend to gravitate more towards the 3D aspect of things. So that was my journey, was to go back and play some more 2D RPG styles, and just get a feel for the genre as a whole. There was very much a blind spot for me, and I started by backing Sea of Stars, which was a kind of a spiritual successor to what Chrono Trigger is or was. And I still haven't played Chrono Trigger personally, but I'm hoping it'll come to Switch in some form or fashion so I can play it there. But I haven't yet. And so I'm really looking forward to just going in and diving into some of these games, especially like, as I mentioned, Chrono Trigger. But I jumped on that with Sea of Stars, and Sea of Stars had the pixelated graphics. It had really great soundtrack, but it had the mechanics similar to Paper Mario and Mario RPG, where you timed your button presses to get extra damage, or you time your button press to not take as much damage, and things like that. And so I really got into the swing of that, and then I'm like, you know what? The thing that got me, though, is that this was a 2D RPG that grabbed me in the feels. Like, I got emotionally invested in these characters, and it was just a living, breathing world, and I could finally understand how, like, oh, so playing a 2D RPG, it's not like 3D models and stuff, like, but I'm still picking up on the emotion and the story, like, and I'm really loving this. So maybe these games these 2D RPGs that I've written off over time, because I just thought I could never emotionally connect with them, maybe there's something there that I can connect with. My first real major foray into that was playing Final Fantasy VI, which I had just wrapped up, and I didn't get a huge impactful like connection. It was a bit awkward in points to feel. It felt disjointed in parts where like it took me a second to realize what they were trying to convey. Like when characters were like dancing around the screen or doing strange movements and stuff, I was like, what in the world? Oh, I see. They're trying to convey some sort of emotion when they can't actually show emotion on the face and stuff because it's pixelated. And so it was cool to see them try to convey certain things like surprise and excitement and like being disappointed and feeling those emotions in a 2D medium. It's definitely an art form for sure. And it took me a second on a couple of the events to really figure out what was going on there. Maybe I didn't pick up on all the cues, but I do see where the allure of it is. And I got to play the famous, what is it? The famous opera scene. And at first I didn't get it. It didn't click with me. I think if I played through it again, it would click a little bit more. But it was meant to be kind of goofy, but serious at the same time. And it had some different mechanics than you normally would have in a game, like an RPG game. So it was cool to experience that. I didn't actually start really getting emotionally invested in the story until about the third time the Ultros shows up. And then I started like getting it, if you will. So like, then I started getting invested, but by that point I was pretty far into the game. But it still hooked me. It didn't like, start to end hook me like Final Fantasy VIII did. But I see there's a lot of value in that. And so, like, I'm definitely chomping at the bit to try, other 2D RPGs. I have a friend that recommended that I go and play Suikoden 2. And just so happens Suikoden 1 and 2 is going to be coming out here at the beginning of next year as a remaster. So I'm going to be picking that up and playing that. And then aside from that, like, just going to the 2D RPGs, I also wanted to go through and complete and cut out a big chunk of my backlog of RPGs. Things that I started, never finished, things that I've always been meaning to play, and of course, it helps that Nintendo released Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door this year on Switch, because that was something that was on my list of needed to play. So, but really, this started in another direction based on Jacob's recommendation of playing an RPG, which is super weird. Like, I never would have expected this, but Jacob got into Final Fantasy VII, the remake. And then he started playing Final Fantasy Crisis Core on Switch, and I was like, you know what? I'll pick that up. On recommendation, I picked it up and started playing that too. And so then that kind of kicked off like my being really serious about playing RPGs and going back and covering my backlog and everything. That just kind of kicked me into the mood. Outside of just saying, oh yeah, I'll play Sea of Stars and then I'll get into 2D RPGs. Cool. But this really, really cemented that and set me on this journey. Yeah. And so we've both been going on our journeys separately. Go ahead and Jacob, and just talk a bit about where your journey is now. And then I've got a list of games that I've checked off my list, ones that I have to complete, and then ones that I want to start. On this RPG journey. But let's go ahead and just switch it over. Like, we'll come to that section later. Go ahead and switch over to you and just talk a bit about your RPG journey as of late.
I mean, it kind of started during the Switch era, if I'm being honest. Like, to really, because for the longest time, an RPG would just
Evolution
make
Worlds.
me roll my eyes. And I mean,
Evolution Worlds.
And I won't be like, huh? Oh, yeah, that's a long one, a long time ago. Again, I've had bad taste like that, just not fun. I don't, and I won't, even today, after all the RPGing I've done this year, I'm not a fan of when I get constantly interrupted to do battles. Like, I like when I can choose to do the battle. If I'm choosing, I want to go grind and power up, that's my choice. And I'm doing it. I don't like it when I'm trying to get to a destination and I'm constantly being stopped and constantly being stopped. And I'll say, I think this seed was planted back during the Mario Rabbids initial launch, because I was all about it, and it had quirky music. It was Banjo-Kazooie-esque, Donkey Kong Country-esque, and Mario kind of all fused together. And I know it was like an XCOM thing, style of gameplay, but it had RPG elements to it, and that really got me into finally enjoying something like that since the original Pokemon days, because I played the original games, and again, I'm still bored with current Pokemon, but I was enjoying this. Then fast forward to buying a PS5, buying my first non-Nintendo console, and I bought it for like God of War, which is not an RPG at all, it opened this gateway of games that I could start playing that I've never played, and I've always had a fascination with Final Fantasy, because I remember you playing
10.
on your PS2. I think it was Final Fantasy. Yeah, 10. And to be fair, I even tried to buy that version on Switch, and I did not enjoy it. I enjoyed the graphics and the memories that I remember seeing you with it, but I didn't enjoy it overall, again, because it's still, even those RPGs were still like, I don't know, you're getting stopped a lot, and you have to grind, and I don't like that. And in a world where my time is scarce, I hate having to constantly be forced to grind before I can progress. Where at least I feel like games today are so much more better to helping you. You can progress through. The challenge may be harder, but you don't have to sit there and just grind for hours until you're ready to take on a new boss. Now I got my PS5, and I finally, at Christmas time last year, I had PlayStation money, and I bought Final Fantasy VII Remake. I was like, wow, this is something I can finally play, because Kyle Martin had showed it to me on his PlayStation 5, and I had tested it a long time ago. I'm like, this is cool. I like it. The graphics are great. This is going to be my first big venture into my first true mainline Final Fantasy game that I've always wanted to play. And I started to fall in love with the characters. Obviously, the graphics are gorgeous, and they're amazing, and that truly does help. But the music is fascinating, and you just get sucked into the world and the story, which then, gave me this hunger for, like, I need more Final Fantasy when I was done with it at the start of this year in January. And so I got Crisis Core, and I got it on Switch. I know it probably wasn't the best looking version. Kyle, he's all about that top-of-the-line graphics, so you better get on PS5 always if it's there. I didn't care. I wanted it on the go. I was traveling for competitions for sports for my daughter, and it's very convenient that way. And I thought the graphics were just fine for a Switch. And I enjoyed it, and I discovered, probably one of my all-time favorite characters in general ever, and that's Zack, from Zack Strife from Final Fantasy VII, and they added so much character there, because in the original Final Fantasy VII game, he's just this small off-side character that they mention a couple of times. They don't go into detail. He doesn't play a big role in that, but they really fledged him out. And then when you beat... I had to stop... Actually, I had to put a pause on 7 Remake. That's what it was. I put a pause on it, went to Crisis Core, played that, because I was told you should do that, because the end of 7 Remake, it rewrites everything. It changes original story, basically, of what happens in Final Fantasy VII. Because up to that point, I think it had pretty much been similar to the main story of the original 7 game, which is considered probably one of the best in ever. And it really it drew me in, sucked me in. And I can say I definitely am a Final Fantasy VII huge fan. And I'm advocating for other remakes like this to come from other games of Final Fantasy. Get them modernized. I would love that. And then now, since July, pretty much all of July and all of August, I have been playing 7 Rebirth, and it's one that I dove in with the dedication like I did with Breath of the Wild. I am doing everything, almost everything possible. Maybe besides like the Korok seeds, I didn't do that, but I'm trying to do every side mission. I'm trying to power up as much as I can. I'm trying to do. There's this mini card game called Queen's Blood. I'm trying to beat every character you can, and with Queen's Blood, and then the main story. And it's a good pace of going back and forth from quests. I get bored with these quests and exploring, go back to the main story, and then back and forth. I think it's a good mix up. The music's fascinating. And I don't know if this is a bad thing or not, but I am to the point, Ryan, where I've like, this game is massive and I wish it would just end. Like, because you do something and then I just beat a big story beat a few weeks ago, and I remember I was like, all right, I just need to put this down for a while. Because as soon as you beat the story beat, it like unlocks all of these check marks saying this is available, this is available, this is available. Basically, it just opened up all these new side missions back in every region that I had already 100%ed, and said, now there's a lot more to do. Go back to all those old regions, and there's a new treasure hunting quest. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I was like, all right, I need a breather. Just because it's like you do so much, and then they open up more. But what I love about it is not just the character. I love the action RPG role playing. I love the openness and the fast pace, and I'm not being stopped. And I take a turn, and then you take a turn to hit me, and I hope that you miss. It's not like that, and I love that. And because of that, I do feel like it's opened up this doorway to where in time, I want to play games like Xenoblade 1, 2, and like those are like that. And the Gundam one, dang, now with me getting into Gundam, the one that's all mech bots and stuff, I think that'd be fun. And because they're a very similar build to what Final Fantasy VII is like. So it's fair. Oh, and oh my gosh, how did I forget about this? I totally skipped over this. This isn't Final Fantasy VII, but part of my journey with Undertale and Deltarune. Like those are RPGs, and I'm ashamed that I even forgot that, because those games blew me away, and I love them, and I consider them my tops of all time. I would say that came after the Mario Rabbids era. And what was different was that, yes, I'm being stopped in RPGs, but it was a different take. It was like trying not to kill your enemies, definitely with Undertale, and figure out how to get through the fight. And I thought that was super fun and unique. So really, with all those combined, to getting me to current day, like it's funny just because I feel like middle school version of me, like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade me was really into anime, watching Toonami late at night, asking, those were my obsessions. And we played Mario RPG I played Mario RPG was this year, and I had Paper Mario that we just did our episode on. So like, I'm more accepting at playing other RPGs if they can fit the right criteria. And I never thought I'd be able to say that, like, yeah, the majority of the games I've played in 1 year are mostly RPGs. It started off with Final Fantasy VII, went to Crisis Core, finished off. And I guess I had started the year technically with Mario RPG because I got it for Christmas. And then, take a small break, I guess, and I was dabbling into other side games. But overall, when I like really dive and focus on, it's been these RPG things. And what I've learned from RPGs is that every story is just it's deep. It's deep, and they're best known for their storytelling. and creating these beautiful story beats that really make you cry. I mean, I've cried at multiple times at Rebirth and stuff that's happened, and I if you want to get into a story that takes you away and makes you feel things, I highly recommend to find a good RPG. Undertale does it. Deltarune does it. Final Fantasy VII certainly does it. It's just their masterpieces, and so I've been into Japanese stuff a lot lately.
Man, you got to get on Sea of Stars.
And I mean, yeah, I do need to, and I will get back to it. It's just these other big games just keep interrupting, and then I want to get Mario and Luigi Brothership for Christmas, and that's another RPGist game. So, and I'm really hoping that when Switch 2 does come, that I hope that 7 Remake and Rebirth are in the lineup to come to it, because I'll buy them because I would support that stuff being on Nintendo's main stuff, and they're that awesome. I would love to take them and play them. Now that I've had the home screen experience, I would love to take it on the go and casually play those over time just for fun. I think it'd be great, and I want more. I want you to play them. I want all of our group chat and everybody on our Facebook thing to play them. So they're awesome games, and I can't say enough about them. And they definitely open the doorway for me to consider, like, maybe I should go get those Final Fantasy like pixel remakes and give those a try and dive down those rabbit holes. So. That's where I'm at. And honestly, you talk about Pokemon being an RPG, sort of. It was great back in the day, but I think they're so far behind in what makes an RPG great. They need to step it up. It's not part of it is graphics and character development, absolutely, and modernizing, getting with voice acting and stuff like that. But Pokemon could be magical. It could be so much more magical. It's not magical. It's dull. It's like dry cereal that's stale. It needs to be freshened up.
Yeah,
and
I feel that.
I would love to get back into Pokemon. I really would. I want to. But they have to cross the lines to making it better for me. And I feel like Pokemon just plays it safe. They use the cheapest style of graphics you can. Their characters are they're just weird, like straight up weird. I mean, they're, you've seen the DLC, like, what are we doing? Why, just, I don't know. Pokemon, it's a frustrating franchise because I want to get back into it because I have a lot of nostalgia, especially for those first 2 to 3 generations, definitely the first 2. And it could be special, but they have to do it, and they have not done it in years. And they rely solely on just
and
the
I think
brand
that they
name
are
to sell
starting
their
to
copies
do that,
of
and they're starting to
games.
take that feedback. I mean, we've got the Pokemon Legends series, which, yes, it does have the strangeness. It had a little bit of a better story. It's not like an epic Final Fantasy type story with many emotional plot twists and things like that. But mechanically, it changed a lot. It's basically the action RPG version of Pokemon, as Pokemon being a turn-based RPG in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, it still has those like turn-based elements, but that's essentially what I would call Legends Arceus. And then there's a new Legends coming out with the whatever the Z version would have been for X and Y. It's going to have its own kind of Legends style, and so they're making that distinction where they have their classic turn-based, and then they've got their different, almost open world feel, and so like that is happening, but it's not. You're not going to get like a Final Fantasy type story from a Pokemon game. Even, I mean, and the little bit you get, it's like story light. Even with the really good ones, with I think N being one of the more popular stories and villains. So like that's something that, like, we're talking about RPGs that we've had on Nintendo consoles. We haven't had a lot of really great entries since arguably the Super Nintendo. And that's when I wasn't playing RPGs. The 3 RPGs for Final Fantasy were on other systems, not Nintendo. And so, like, those weren't accessible. So those were things that were blind spots. And I had my own limitations for not playing 2D RPGs at the time. So, like, I had to branch out to PlayStation. I branched out a lot earlier than you did, but, I got to experience some of those things. And I'm glad that you're able to go in and experience those as well. and finally get to dive in. I'm sad for you that you had to wait, or you had to get a Sony console before you could actually start to enjoy those things. But not saying that Sony's bad, but I just wish that we could have had this accessibility, because like as cool as Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is, it is not a Final Fantasy turn-based RPG. Like, it's got the story beats that are winding in a lot of ways, but it was just such a different thing. And it's like, keep Nintendo different is Square's idea of like what they put on it. It seems so. That's kind of like that feeling there. So that's kind of where my journey and your journey have been coming. And right now we're I've got kind of a list of RPGs that I've completed this year. The first one that I wrapped up and really just kind of like kicked to the curb as far as playing was Chris Tales. I started a long time ago, and then other games came out and just distracted me from playing that. And so I finally finished that out and really enjoyed my time with it. It at the time when I was playing it, it was starting to feel like a chore to try to get through it. Just because, again, it was the random battles all the time. And it's really bad for Chris Tales. Like, no joke. It's really bad. And it has the time button presses, but they're a lot less like obvious in that game. And so like it was just hard for me to get to it at first, but when I came back to it went really well. Of course I did Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. I got distracted for a bit there for Dragon Quest IX, and I played that on there's Delta emulator that came to iOS. And so I picked that up, to play the Dragon Quest IX again, played the main story, and got pretty heavily into that, and did a lot, as much as I could do, up until a point where I lost my save, like part of my save file, because they upgraded Delta and it didn't support like the save states that I had been using. So then that kind of stymied my progress through Dragon Quest IX. But I realized I had put enough into it that I felt satisfied with it. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll boot up Dragon Quest XI. I never really finished the final boss, and so I went and started playing that. I'm like, I don't really feel like I want to play this right now. And so what I'm actually going to do with Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest XI, is I'm going to start it over, and there's a mode where you can play it all in pixel version, and I'm going to play the 2D RPG version of Dragon Quest XI and see how I feel about that, having played Dragon Quest XI and absolutely love the emotional beats and the story and things, and see if I get that same feeling, kind of compare side by side with the 2D RPG, like pixelated style. And also I'll be playing with the classic, it's also my intro to the classic Dragon Quest enemy encounters as well. And so just, that's kind of where I'm going to be going with that. I finished off Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, which we talked about earlier, and that was a great experience RPG-wise. I said I wrapped up Final Fantasy VI. It took me a couple months to get through that, but overall it was really good. I picked up the new Denpamen and was sorely disappointed. They had given it like the microtransaction cell phone game treatment, like to the worst degree, and so that just was not what I wanted to do at all. I was not feeling it. I prefer the original Denpamen and the second one that had that charm that was just very. It has an unpolished RPG charm, and it's fine until like the third and fourth version of Denpamen never improved anything. And so then that, and this last version that I tried to play on Switch was like heavily, it was very poorly translated in a lot of parts, and it just wasn't well handled. There's a lot of English, and it didn't feel like the devs put much care into the game. And so I didn't feel like I needed to put much of my time towards the game. I may come back to it someday, but that might be one that I just write off the backlog completely, sadly. But it was technically free to play, so, get what you pay for there, I guess. But I also decided to pick up Golden Sun and started playing that on the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online app. And I've played just a little bit of it, and so that's something I plan to continue playing. Of course, I'm either going to finish Dragon Quest XI on the 3D version. I tried to jump from 9 to 11 and expect 11, because I forgot what 11 was like, to be just like 9 in mechanics, and it's not. And so like it was really awkward for me to get back into it. And it reminded me of all the things I didn't like about 11 compared to 9. And so I need to take a little bit more time out to really experience Dragon Quest 11. Maybe I might finish out that final boss and and just call it good, and then do my playthrough of the 2D version later. I haven't decided how I want to handle that, but that's my continue on my list that I need to do. In addition to that, I did pick up Xenoblade Definitive Edition. I have Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and Torna. I just haven't gotten to play them. I originally started playing Xenoblade Chronicles on 3DS and got decently far. But, I just... we didn't get to a point where we, jumped on any other islands, so to speak, or any other areas, but I had played a decent amount just in that on my 3DS, and it wasn't a bad experience for me. But I went ahead and got the definitive edition for Switch, and then I let a friend borrow it, and I think their partner accidentally sold it off, and so I just got it again. Used my GameStop deals to get it for fairly cheap used, and so I'm going to be got that in my backlog to play. And then I also want to start. I have Final Fantasy X and X-2. That I have sitting in my backlog that I need to play, and then Batten Kaitos 1 and 2, which I've picked up and I just have sitting there waiting for me to play. And I may not get to all of these within the year of 2024. I'm sure there's going to be lots of other distractions amidst the urge to play Final Fantasy VIII again, or go and play some of the other games that are not necessarily RPGs, like the Famicom Detective Club, Emio the Smiling Man, or during the Halloween spooky season, and there's just some other games that might distract me along the way, some RPGs that I've been itching to get into, and of course I'm sure there's something Pokemon related that I'm going to get caught up in, just that's just generally what happens for that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, where I'm at on my RPG journey and what's going forward. I don't know of any other major RPGs coming out to Switch, so that's where I'm kind of sitting. I don't think there's any turn-based RPGs that I have to pick up coming up here soon. I don't really have any desire to play any of the older Final Fantasies before 6. So I'm good there. I would just have 10 to finish. I may eventually pick up Final Fantasy 12 again. I bought it for PlayStation 2 back in the day. I pre-ordered it and got it. And it was such a departure from the turn-based RPG that I was hoping for. It was a turnoff for me. And so I just decided to I was very disappointed in that different gameplay style. So I kind of sold it off immediately. And I hope to get it again for Switch and to play it with a different frame of mind, realizing how the combat works with the rings around the enemies, and that once you get in that field and you're in the battle with them. And it was trying to be more seamless and less random encounter-y. And so I definitely have plans to give that a go. That also means I'll probably be pulled into that. I think it's Ivalice is what the world is called, and I know that it's based on Final Fantasy Tactics, which I probably won't get into tactics games ever, but there's also the Final Fantasy online game for Final Fantasy. I think it's 14 that's online, and it has that same universe or that same world with the bunny race and everything. So I'm thinking about doing those. There's lots of other where can I go with this RPG journey, but I've checked off the major ones. I kind of want to get into some of the offshoots, the ones that people recommend but aren't as popular. I mean Golden Sun is pretty popular, but just that sort of thing. I'd like to play some of those games that are kind of on the fringe, Suikoden, and experience those RPGs that are not necessarily the main heavy hitters. Just to say I've experienced those things at least once and understand the genre, or those particular ones. I know the one is Skies of Arcadia, I think I've heard. It's a Sega-based RPG. And, of course, there's always the Tales games that are around, Tales of Symphonia and things that I love. So lots of RPGs. There's no short supply of RPGs out there for me to play and to add to my list, going forward. But Chrono Trigger is probably the number one. As soon as it comes around, I'm dropping everything. I'm going to be playing that when it comes to Switch. So in whatever form, remake, remaster, NSO, whatever, I'll play the heck out of it because I've heard really good things about it. And Sea of Stars has become one of my all-time favorite games. And so the fact that that it was based largely on this Chrono Trigger and how highly regarded the game is. Like I'm looking forward to it. And when playing 6 and it didn't capture me like all the hype was back in the day. People love 6 like over like 7 and 8, but I didn't quite feel that feeling. But knowing what I know about Sea of Stars and how much I love Sea of Stars and getting quote unquote the fan hype and fever around Final Fantasy VI after playing it, I think I'm gonna have no problems with Chrono Trigger. So that's gonna be like my number one. Like I must get it physical. Like it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, that's kind of where I am on my RPG journey. What's going forward? What about you, Jacob?
I mean, I pretty much updated you on everything already. I think maybe if my biggest critique I could give to a modern Final Fantasy or RPGs game is personally, I've put in maybe 105, 110 hours on Rebirth. And I think that's too. I think it's too long. I mean, It still says I have like 25% of the game left to complete, and there's just so much to do. And I'm playing these extra things right now, and I'm just thinking like this isn't necessary. Like I know it's optional. I know, but like I just feel like it's too much. Like and I'm getting to the point now where I'm just like, all right, just do it, get it done. And it's annoying if I lose a fight because I just want to beat some stuff quick. Like I'm trying to do this battle arena area, which, is all great experience and levels you up more, but it's just like there's a couple of them where I'm like, dang, it got the best of me and I wasted that time and I have to redo it. And I don't like that because I'm to the point of where like, okay, I need to wrap this up. I've explored all the areas and the areas are massive. I've done all of the regional things and collected all the datas you can get. And then there's just more. Boom. It's like once you beat an obstacle, I finally beat it. Yes. You've unlocked another side quest. It's just like I'm getting jaded. And I know that sounds a bit quite the opposite of what I'm saying. Don't let this clearly I enjoy it or otherwise I wouldn't do it. I really wanted to commit to like
it's
doing
hard for
everything.
things like that. Like
and
you have to understand that RPGs and completionists have a glutton for punishment, and the developers like go hard on the content. Like if I were to tell you to go 100% Dragon Quest 9, that is a literal impossible task for you. Let me just tell you that now, because it is a grinder and RPG fans heaven and hell because of how much content and stuff that they could do. Like to get 100% everything, you can revocate every single skill, up to 10 levels. And then like you can do grinding to get every single item, fight every single boss, get every single drop from those bosses. Like there is endless upon endless like things that you can complete in those types of games. And so like they're there for the people who want to just put the time into that game. Like for me, if I absolutely love a game, I'll go and I'll do the extra stuff up to a certain point. Like I loved Breath of the Wild, but I didn't do the Koroks because I felt like I got what I wanted out of the game. And if a game gets to the point where like you have to go through all the trudge through all of that before you get that satisfaction, then you'll have to question like, if is it worth continuing?
Yeah. There's a battle arena fight I was looking at that I skipped today because there's part in frogs in fights where some enemies can cast magic and turn you into a frog. And you have to fight as a frog.
Classic.
And the whole battle is set as beating your opponents.
Oh, that sounds
frogs.
Like the status effect they give in 6 that turns you into a kappa. Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of.
I don't want to fight a giant. I didn't go into it, so I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's overwhelming monsters and giant monsters that you're going to have to take down as two
If it's
frogs.
the same mechanic as Final Fantasy VI, basically it makes it so you can attack and you do less damage, but you can't like use any magic or skills or anything. If it's anything like that, yeah.
Yeah, you got like 2 attacks. You can use a standard slap with your tongue, and then you can do. There's 3. Then there's like a high jump where you can like kind of land on their heads.
High jump,
and then there's
it might be kind of similar
attack.
to a dragoon, maybe, which is, but
probably.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of cool to see, like, to hear, like, playing Final Fantasy VI and experiencing the 2D pixel art, and then hearing, like, you talk about a modern version of that in a Final Fantasy VII remake. It's like, that's really cool to me. Like, I want to experience that now, and more so than just the story, like the mechanics and stuff, and see how Final Fantasy as a series has grown. Like, it was cool to play in Final Fantasy VI and run into classic enemies and see how they were used in the past, and how, like, the games that I've played in my experience with Final Fantasy, how they changed and did things differently, but used the same themes. And it's beyond just having the same characters. Like, every Final Fantasy has a Cid character in it. It's more than that. Like, see it,
Right.
like, that's their style of RPG, and then branching out and figuring out what are other RPG genres out there. Like, what are their styles like? What are their specialties and things that they do well. I hear Suikoden is all about, like, having obscene amount of characters, kind of like Fire Emblem. Like, you just have, like, hundreds and hundreds of characters to pick from on your team, and there's a lot of options with that and customizability and stuff. So, like, there's different takes on different things, and I think it's pretty cool that we have that opportunity to experience those. And it's kind of like the world is your oyster on experiencing those things. I'm looking forward to it greatly, just going forward in our journey. But I'm really satisfied with where I am right now, and I've got a lot more RPG stuff to work through and enjoy. But I'm curious to see what we have coming in the future with the new Switch, and what all fun we can have together exploring these awesome worlds and RPG turn-based or action RPG settings together.
Yeah, it's true, and I enjoy them, and I look forward to enjoying more. I do think that maybe a 40 to 60 hours good overall. Like,
You
I
got to
think
play
that's
Sea
the
of Stars,
timeframe
man.
I would enjoy the most.
It's going to hit that right there.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because it's not overwhelming, and I can get my fill. It's like going to a big meal, and then there's like, oh, we got 10 more courses for you, and you're full after the first 4, So, but overall, I have been glad that I've been enjoying them. I'm glad that I can say that, like, RPGs don't turn me off anymore all the time, and don't get me wrong, I have my limits, and my bread and butter is always going to be like a 3D open platformer. I love those the most, and I always will, but RPGs are special because of the music, of the story, and just the way they entangle your heart and emotions in ways you never thought would happen. I mean, it's a book, it's a movie, it's a show. If you get connected to any of those, it's the same thing with an RPG, and I love that. So... Well, Ryan, that was a good discussion. Why don't you just remind everybody, since we've been gone so long, where they can find us or spread the word?
Sure thing. You can find us on your podcast catcher of choice: Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts. If you want to find us on socials, you can find us on Facebook at Nintendo NOS, on TikTok, Nintendo_NOS, on X Twitter at Nintendo_NOS, Instagram, Nintendo NOSIN. You can shoot us an email at nintendonostalgiain@gmail.com. You can also give us a call on our Nostalgia Hotline, share your memories, and show us some love at 317-969-5690. That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time. Later, Preston.
Peace out.